The day the Nexari arrived, humanity thought they were witnessing the dawn of a new era. Their ships appeared silently, materializing above major cities worldwide like crystalline sculptures catching the morning light. The vessels were works of art, organic curves blending seamlessly with geometric precision, their hulls shimming with an iridescent coating that seemed to bend light itself. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the roof of the Quantum Physics Institute in Buenos Aires, her dark eyes fixed on the massive ship hovering above the city. As Earth's leading expert in quantum entanglement theory, she knew she should be analyzing the impossible feat of their arrival, but all she could think about was how beautiful they were. "It's really happening," she whispered to herself, clutching her tablet tighter as data streamed across its surface. The atmospheric readings were unlike anything she'd ever seen. The ships were somehow existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. The first message came exactly 3 hours after their arrival. It broadcast simultaneously across every communication device on Earth, in perfect local languages. "People of Earth, we are the Nexari. We bring gifts of knowledge and technology. Your potential intrigues us. We wish to guide your species to greatness." Commander James Mitchell of the Global Defense Force watched the message replay from the Pentagon's command center, his weathered face illuminated by dozens of monitors. 25 years of military service had taught him to trust his instincts, and something about this felt wrong. "Too perfect," he muttered, running a hand through his graying hair. "Nobody gives away technology without wanting something in return." The world's governments scrambled to respond, forming a unified delegation for first contact. Dr. Rodriguez was selected as part of the scientific team, while Commander Mitchell was assigned to security. The meeting was set for neutral ground, a specially constructed facility in Geneva. The Nexari representatives were tall, ethereal beings with silvery skin that seemed to ripple like mercury. Their ambassador, who called himself Voice of Progress, spoke with musical precision. "We have watched your species struggle to overcome its limitations. We can help you transcend them." Elena felt a chill run down her spine as the ambassador's gaze met hers. Those eyes, they were too calculating, too cold. But the offers they made were incredible: clean energy technology, advanced medical treatments, faster-than-light travel capabilities. For 3 days, the negotiations continued. The Nexari asked for nothing in return except the opportunity to establish cultural exchange centers in major cities. It seemed too good to be true. It was. On the 4th day, as humanity celebrated what they thought was a new chapter in their history, the Nexari showed their true colors. The cultural exchange centers activated simultaneously, releasing a cascade of quantum disruption waves that disabled every piece of advanced technology on Earth. Power grids failed. Communications went dark. Military defenses crumbled. Commander Mitchell was in the middle of warning the Joint Chiefs about his suspicions when it happened. He watched helplessly as screens went dead and weapons systems crashed. "This isn't an accident," he barked into a backup radio running on ancient vacuum tube technology. "This is an invasion." Dr. Rodriguez was more fortunate. The moment she'd seen the quantum readings from the cultural centers, she'd recognized the pattern. It was similar to her own research into quantum disruption fields. She'd managed to shield her lab's key equipment before the attack, preserving crucial data and tools that would prove invaluable in the resistance to come. The Nexari's second message was very different from their first: "Your species requires structure. Resistance is futile. Accept our dominion, and you may yet serve a purpose in the greater galaxy." But they had made a crucial mistake. In their arrogance, they assumed that removing humanity's advanced technology would render them helpless. They didn't understand that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their technology. It was their resilience, their creativity, and their absolute refusal to submit to tyranny. As the Nexari ships deployed occupation forces, pockets of resistance were already forming. Commander Mitchell used his knowledge of old-school warfare to establish secure communications using technology too primitive for the Nexari to bother disrupting. Dr. Rodriguez began analyzing the saved data, searching for weaknesses in the seemingly invincible alien quantum technology. The invaders had expected submission. Instead, they found themselves facing a species that had spent its entire history learning to overcome impossible odds. Humanity had been knocked down, but they were far from defeated. In labs, bunkers, and hidden bases around the world, the counterattack was already being planned. The Nexari thought they had struck a decisive first blow. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest moments had always come after their darkest hours. 3 months into the Nexari occupation, humanity had learned to live in the shadows. The aliens controlled the skies and major cities, but they couldn't be everywhere at once. In the spaces between their patrols, resistance grew like wildflowers through concrete. Deep beneath the Andes Mountains, Dr. Elena Rodriguez had transformed an abandoned mining complex into Earth's most advanced research facility, though advanced had taken on a new meaning since the invasion. Vacuum tubes, analog computers, and mechanical calculators lined the walls. Technology that belonged in museums had become humanity's best defense against detection. "It's not pretty, but it works," Elena explained to Commander Mitchell, who had just arrived after a harrowing 2-week journey from North America. She led him through laboratories where scientists worked with hybrid systems, part salvaged alien tech, part human ingenuity. The Nexari's quantum disruption fields only affect certain types of circuit pathways. "We've been rebuilding our technology from the ground up, using architectures they never considered." Mitchell nodded, his expression grim but hopeful. "We've got similar setups across the globe now. Resistance cells using everything from carrier pigeons to modified crystal radios. The Nexari think they've knocked us back to the Stone Age, but they don't understand. Humans have been innovating since we first picked up sticks and stones." In one corner of the facility, a team worked on what looked like antique radio equipment modified with crystalline components salvaged from crashed Nexari drones. "We've discovered something interesting," Elena said, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "The Nexari's quantum technology operates on principles similar to my pre-invasion research. They're not just disrupting our technology, they're using quantum fields to maintain their own superiority. But every system has its weaknesses." Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "What kind of weaknesses?" "Their quantum fields require perfect coherence," Elena explained, pulling up a series of hand-drawn diagrams. "It's why they need those cultural exchange centers, they're actually quantum field generators. But we found that certain frequencies of mechanical oscillation can disrupt their coherence. No electronics required, just precisely machined mechanical resonators." The implications were staggering. Humanity couldn't match the Nexari's technology, but they might not need to. They just needed to make it fail. Meanwhile, across the world, other forms of resistance were taking shape. In the ruins of Tokyo, teenagers with mechanical watches coordinated hit-and-run attacks on Nexari patrols, using the predictable patterns of alien shifts against them. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous guides led resistance fighters through paths the Nexari's sensors couldn't penetrate, using knowledge passed down through generations. The Nexari had expected humanity to break under their technological superiority. Instead, humans adapted. When they couldn't use computers, they used slide rules. When digital communications were impossible, they developed codes using everything from drumbeats to dance movements. Every human skill, every bit of forgotten knowledge, became a weapon. In orbit, the Nexari Council was beginning to show signs of concern. Voice of Progress, now the governor of Earth operations, reviewed the latest reports with growing frustration. "These humans, they're using methods we can't track. Primitive technologies we never considered a threat. Chemical reactions, mechanical systems, analog signals, it's chaos." "Perhaps," suggested another council member, "we underestimated their adaptability. They're using their technological regression as a shield, operating beneath our ability to detect them." On the ground, Commander Mitchell was organizing a coordinated resistance network. Using Elena's research, they had begun manufacturing mechanical resonators that could temporarily disrupt Nexary quantum fields. The devices weren't powerful enough to defeat the aliens outright, but they could create windows of opportunity, moments when human technology could function normally. "We don't need to win every battle," Mitchell told his officers during a secure meeting in the underground facility. "We just need to prove we can hurt them. Make them realize that holding Earth will cost them more than it's worth." Elena's team had made another crucial discovery. The Nexary's quantum technology didn't just power their weapons and ships, it was integrated into their biology. "They've evolved beyond conventional physical forms," she explained, showing Mitchell microscope images of Nexary cellular structures. "Their bodies exist in a quantum superposition, which is why our conventional weapons pass right through them. But if we can disrupt their quantum coherence, they become solid," Mitchell finished, understanding dawning on his face. "Vulnerable." The Resistance now had a real weapon, but using it would require getting close to the Nexary, close enough to activate the resonators before being detected. It would be incredibly dangerous, but for the first time since the invasion, humanity had a fighting chance. As plans were drawn and preparations made, word spread through the Resistance network. Hope, that most human of emotions, began to take root. The Nexary had chosen Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, a species that had spent its entire existence learning to overcome superior forces through creativity, determination, and sheer stubborn will. In her lab, Elena worked tirelessly to improve the resonators, knowing that every incremental advance could save human lives. Commander Mitchell coordinated with resistance cells worldwide, preparing for the first major offensive against the occupiers. The Nexary had struck first, but humanity would strike back, not with superior technology, but with the unconquerable spirit that had taken them from caves to the stars. The time for hiding was coming to an end. Soon, the Nexary would learn why countless others throughout history had learned to fear the creativity of desperate humans. Operation First Light began at dawn. Across the globe, resistance fighters armed with mechanical resonators emerged from hiding places that the Nexary's quantum sensors had never detected. The aliens had grown complacent, believing their technological superiority made them invincible. They were about to learn otherwise. In Buenos Aires, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in a makeshift control center, surrounded by analog equipment and hand-drawn maps. The room hummed with the sound of mechanical computers and vacuum tubes. "Remember," she spoke into a radio built from pre-digital technology, "the resonators have a limited range. You'll need to get close, within 50 meters, for maximum effect." Commander Mitchell led the first strike team personally. His target was a quantum field generator in what used to be Central Park, New York. The massive crystalline structure pulsed with ethereal light, maintaining the field that suppressed human technology across the eastern seaboard. His team moved through the ruins of the city, using paths carefully plotted to avoid Nexary patrol routes. "They're creatures of pattern," Mitchell had explained during the mission briefing. "They think in quantum probabilities, but they act in predictable ways. We'll use that against them." The strike team reached their position just as the sun crested the horizon. The Nexary guards moved in their usual formation, their silvery forms rippling like mercury in the morning light. They never bothered to look for threats in their blind spots. Why should they, when their quantum sensors could detect any advanced technology? But the humans carried no advanced technology. Their weapons were spring-powered launchers. Their communications were based on hand signals and mechanical clickers. Even their timepieces were wind-up watches, synchronized before the mission. Mitchell gave the signal. Across the city, resonators activated simultaneously. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The quantum field flickered, and for the first time since the invasion, the Nexary guards looked uncertain. Their forms solidified as quantum coherence failed, making them vulnerable to conventional weapons. The resistance struck with devastating precision. Years of occupation had taught them patience, and months of preparation had honed their tactics. Spring-launched nets, weighted with salvaged Nexary crystal shards, entangled the now solid aliens. Primitive but lethal weapons found their marks. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Tokyo, resonators hidden in ancient temple bells activated during a ceremonial ringing, creating a cascade of quantum disruption that left the Nexary garrison in chaos. In the Amazon, indigenous warriors armed with blow darts tipped with a compound derived from native plants took down Nexary patrols when their quantum defenses failed. Elena watched the reports come in through her network of mechanical telegraph systems and radio relays. Multiple quantum field generators disabled, she announced to the resistance leadership. We're seeing cascade failures in their network. Their quantum coherence is destabilizing across entire regions. In orbit, the Nexary Council was thrown into chaos. Voice of Progress watched in disbelief as status reports showed quantum field generator after generator going dark. Impossible, he declared. They're using primitive mechanical devices. They should be helpless. But humanity was far from helpless. As the quantum fields failed, pre-prepared human technology came back online. Computer systems that had been shielded and hidden underground sprang to life. Military hardware that had been protected in Faraday cages and lead-lined bunkers became operational again. The Nexary attempted to respond with overwhelming force, but their tactics were based on quantum probability calculations that became useless in the face of human unpredictability. Their ships, designed to fight with quantum weapons, found themselves targeted by crude but effective kinetic weapons launched from rebuilt rail guns. They never understood us, Elena told Mitchell over a secure radio channel. They thought taking away our advanced technology would make us surrender. They didn't realize that humans have been fighting wars since before we had electricity. Every piece of knowledge we've ever gained, every technique we've ever developed, it's all still there. The battle raged for hours. The Nexary still held technological superiority in areas where their quantum fields remained intact, but their once impregnable defense had been breached. More importantly, their aura of invincibility was shattered. The resistance had proven that the aliens could be hurt, could be killed. By sunset, humanity had secured its first major victory. Several major cities were free of Nexary control. The quantum suppression fields were down across significant portions of the globe. But the real victory was psychological. The Nexary were forced to retreat to defensive positions, abandoning their strategy of casual occupation. In the underground facility, Elena and her team worked frantically to analyze captured Nexary technology. With the quantum fields down, they could finally use their advanced equipment to study the alien devices. Each victory gives us more data, she explained to Mitchell. More understanding of their weaknesses. More ways to fight back. Mitchell nodded, his expression grim but satisfied. They came here expecting to find savages they could easily control. Instead, they found out why humanity has survived every catastrophe we've ever faced. We adapt. We overcome. And we never, ever give up. The Nexary had lost more than a battle. They had lost their certainty of victory. As resistance forces consolidated their gains and prepared for the inevitable counterattack, a new message began spreading through human territories. It wasn't transmitted digitally or broadcast on quantum frequencies. Instead, it was passed from person to person, written on walls, whispered in the darkness. They struck first. We strike harder. The success of Operation First Light had changed the nature of the war, but Elena Rodriguez knew that humanity couldn't win through force alone. The Nexary still controlled most of Earth's orbital space, and their technology, even when vulnerable to the resonators, remained far superior. Victory would require something more subtle, something uniquely human. They think in quantum probabilities, she explained to the Resistance Leadership Council, gathered in the underground command center. Their entire strategic approach is based on calculating mathematical certainties. That's their weakness. They can't understand why we do things that have a low probability of success. Commander Mitchell leaned forward, studying the mechanical hologram projector Elena's team had built using salvaged Nexary crystals and pre-digital technology. It showed the current disposition of alien forces worldwide. You're suggesting we use their own logic against them? Exactly, Elena replied, adjusting the display. They're already struggling to understand our irrational tactics. Let's push that advantage. Make them question everything they think they know about us. The plan that emerged was audacious. Instead of trying to hide their activities from Nexary quantum sensors, the resistance would create an overwhelming abundance of false signals. Every abandoned building would contain dummy resonators broadcasting conflicting frequencies. Decoy bases would be established, designed to draw Nexary attention while real operations continued elsewhere. In orbit, the Nexary Council was growing increasingly fractured. Voice of Progress found himself defending his strategies to increasingly skeptical peers. The humans are primitive, he insisted, his silvery form flickering with agitation. Their victories are statistical anomalies. Once we adjust our quantum algorithms. Your algorithms have failed repeatedly, interrupted Voice of Reason, a younger council member. These primitives have adapted to our every move. Perhaps it is time to consider a different approach. The council chamber erupted in debate. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Nexary faced an enemy that defied their mathematical models. Some advocated for complete withdrawal from Earth. Others called for overwhelming force, suggesting they should simply destroy the planet's biosphere and harvest its resources. On the ground, humanity's deception campaign was expanding. Elena's team had discovered that the Nexary's quantum communications could be interfered with using precisely calibrated mechanical vibrations. They began deploying devices that transmitted false quantum signatures, flooding Nexary networks with contradictory data. They're seeing ghosts, Mitchell reported, watching Nexary patrols chase phantom resistance activities across abandoned cities. Their sensors are picking up thousands of potential threats, but they can't tell which ones are real. The psychological impact on the Nexary was profound. Their soldiers, used to operating with perfect information provided by quantum sensors, became hesitant and uncertain. Every human they encountered might be carrying a resonator. Every primitive device might be a weapon in disguise. Elena's team pushed the advantage further, developing devices that could temporarily mimic Nexary quantum signatures. Resistance fighters could now appear to Nexary sensors as one of their own, at least for short periods. The aliens began to doubt even their own kind, unsure who was really an ally and who might be a human in disguise. Voice of Progress watched his carefully calculated occupation plans crumble. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were systematically undermining the very foundations of Nexary military doctrine. Their quantum probability models, refined over centuries of successful conquests, were worse than useless against human unpredictability. How do you calculate the probability of an action that appears to have zero chance of success? Voice of Reason demanded during another council session. These humans attempt things that should be impossible, and somehow they succeed. Our models cannot account for this. The Resistance's greatest deception was yet to come. Using their understanding of Nexary psychology, they began feeding false information through channels they knew the aliens monitored. They created the illusion of a massive human army gathering in the southern hemisphere, while their real forces assembled in the north. The beauty of it, Elena told Mitchell as they reviewed the plan, is that they'll detect our deception. They'll realize we're trying to mislead them about the army in the south. They'll congratulate themselves on seeing through our primitive attempt at deception. While walking right into the real trap, Mitchell finished, a grim smile on his face. Sometimes the best way to fool someone is to let them think they've caught you trying to fool them. The Nexary took the bait. Their forces began repositioning to counter the perceived southern threat, drawing resources away from their northern holdings. Voice of Progress presented this as a victory to the Council, proof that they were finally beginning to understand and counter human strategies. But humanity's true strategy ran deeper than mere military deception. Every false signal, every phantom army, every contradictory piece of data served to undermine the Nexary's fundamental worldview. A species that relied on quantum probability calculations to make every decision was being forced to confront the possibility that their entire approach to understanding the universe was flawed. In her lab, Elena put the finishing touches on the device that would trigger the final phase of their plan. It looked primitive, a mess of brass gears, crystal oscillators, and mechanical computers. But its effect would be devastating. The Nexary believe they understand quantum mechanics better than we do, she said softly. They're about to learn that understanding the equations doesn't mean you understand the universe. The stage was set. The Nexary, convinced they had finally grasped the pattern of human resistance, were positioning themselves exactly where humanity wanted them. Their own certainty, their unshakable belief in the superiority of their quantum-based worldview, had become their greatest weakness. As resistance forces made their final preparations, Elena found Mitchell standing alone, watching the sunrise through a rare above-ground window. "Do you think they'll ever understand what really defeated them?" she asked. Mitchell shook his head. "How could they? They're looking for a mathematical explanation for the human spirit. Some things can't be reduced to quantum probabilities." The endgame was approaching. Humanity had one chance to turn their greatest deception into their final victory. The Nexary thought they were preparing to crush a primitive rebellion. They were about to discover just how dangerous primitive could be. The day of humanity's final strike dawned cold and clear. In orbit, the Nexary fleet had consolidated its position over the southern hemisphere, preparing to crush what they believed was humanity's last major army. Voice of Progress stood on his command ship, his quantum-shifted form radiating confidence as he reviewed the probability calculations one final time. "The humans have finally made a predictable move," he announced to his fellow council members. "Our models show a 99.9% chance of victory. Their primitive resistance ends today." He had no way of knowing that every percentage point in his calculations had been carefully orchestrated by Elena Rodriguez and her team. The Nexary weren't just fighting the wrong battle, they were fighting with a fundamental misunderstanding of their enemy. Deep beneath the Arctic ice, in a facility that didn't exist according to any Nexary sensor, Elena made the final adjustments to her masterpiece. The device looked like something from an old science fiction movie. Brass gears meshed with crystal matrices, mechanical computers clicked and whirred, and salvaged Nexary technology pulsed with an inner light. "It's ready," she told Commander Mitchell, her voice steady despite the enormity of what they were about to attempt. "When this activates, it won't just disrupt their quantum fields, it will invert them. Every probability calculation they make will become its opposite." Mitchell nodded, understanding the implications. Their entire way of thinking will be turned against them. "Are the strike teams in position?" Around the world, resistance forces waited in carefully chosen locations. They carried no electronic devices, no quantum signatures for the Nexary to detect. Their weapons were mechanical, their communications based on light signals and sound. They were invisible to an enemy that could only see through the lens of advanced technology. The first phase began with silence. Across the globe, the mechanical resonators that had been tormenting the Nexary for months suddenly went quiet. In orbit, Voice of Progress registered the change with satisfaction. "They're finally running out of resources," he declared. "Launch the final assault." But as Nexary forces began their attack on the non-existent Southern Army, Elena's device activated. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Quantum fields didn't just collapse, they inverted. Nexary ships, dependent on quantum probability drives, found themselves pulled toward the trajectories their calculations said were least likely. The aliens' natural ability to quantum shift their forms backfired spectacularly. Instead of existing in multiple probable states, they became locked into the least probable configuration their bodies could achieve. Their sophisticated weapons, designed to target the most likely locations of an enemy, now fired at empty space. "Impossible!" Voice of Progress screamed, watching his fleet tear itself apart. "The probabilities, they're all wrong. That was when humanity's real army struck. From hidden bases across the northern hemisphere, resistance forces emerged with weapons that combined primitive mechanical power with inverted quantum technology. The Nexari, their defenses optimized against the wrong probability patterns, were helpless. Elena watched the battle unfold through a network of old-fashioned periscopes and optical sensors. "They're running into their own quantum wake," she explained to the resistance leadership. "Every attempt they make to predict our movements pushes them further into chaos. The more they try to use their technology, the more it works against them." In orbit, the Nexari Council was in complete disarray. Voice of Reason, watching their carefully constructed models of reality crumble, made an unprecedented decision. "This war is lost," he declared. "These humans, they've done something we thought impossible. They've weaponized uncertainty itself." The retreat, when it came, was total and immediate. The Nexari, faced with an enemy that had turned their own understanding of physics against them, fled Earth's solar system. They left behind wrecked ships, abandoned technology, and a mystery that would puzzle their scientists for generations: how had a supposedly primitive species managed to break the very laws of quantum mechanics? But humanity hadn't broken any laws of physics. They had simply understood something the Nexari never could, that not everything in the universe could be reduced to mathematical probabilities. Sometimes the least likely outcome was the right one. Sometimes impossible things happened simply because someone believed they could. In the aftermath, Earth began to rebuild. The Nexari technology left behind would accelerate human development by centuries, but it would be adapted and used in uniquely human ways. Elena's breakthrough in quantum mechanics would revolutionize human understanding of the universe, while Mitchell's tactical innovations would ensure Earth would never again be seen as an easy target. "What do you think they'll tell their people about us?" Elena asked Mitchell, standing in the ruins of a Nexari quantum field generator. The device, once a symbol of alien oppression, was being dismantled to help power Earth's new defense systems. Mitchell smiled, watching teams of humans working together to rebuild their world. "They'll probably say we broke their quantum models through some kind of technological trick. They'll never understand that our real strength had nothing to do with technology." "Human unpredictability," Elena agreed. "Our ability to look at impossible odds and say, maybe, just maybe, we can beat them anyway." The story of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy. Other species, hearing how Earth had defeated the supposedly invincible Nexari, began to look at humans in a new light. The primitive species that had dared to rewrite the laws of probability had become something more, a warning to any who would underestimate the power of human determination. In the years that followed, humanity would venture out into the stars. They carried with them the lessons learned during the Nexari invasion, that technology was a tool, not a crutch, that impossible odds were just a challenge to overcome, and that the greatest power in the universe wasn't quantum mechanics or advanced technology, it was the simple, unquantifiable strength of the human spirit. The Nexari had struck first, thinking they understood humanity. Their mistake had cost them an empire. And across the galaxy, a new saying began to spread among spacefaring civilizations: before you start a war, ask yourself one question: are you ready to face the humans?